Here we are. Great to see Elliott.
Perfect. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for hosting.
Of course. Well, I know we're getting a little late started here, so let's go ahead and jump in. So Elliott, I'll just give quick 10-second background for you. 20 years of national rental experience. You've been a number one sales rep nationally. Today, we're going to talk about build it and they will come, and why this is not the field of dreams, and why sales is extremely important to driving revenue for your rental business. So we've got some topics to jump into, which I'm really pumped about. Maybe just to get us started, tell us about your background and really how you first got into the rental industry.
Outstanding. Thank you for that. Thanks for the great introduction. So I actually worked for Zepp Manufacturing back in the day, and everybody knows Zepp for a lot of the brake wash and chemical stuff that is used in a lot of our shops and a lot of our rental yards. And somebody said, hey, there's an opening over there at United Rentals. And I went to go work for United Rentals in Denver, Colorado, and had a wonderful time. And I got demoted or promoted or whatever it was and got shipped to Las Vegas. And Vegas, as we all know, back in the 2006, 7, and 8 was an absolutely epic market. And I got to good christening by fire. I'm sure some of you, as you have your different sized rental yards and the companies you work with, Las Vegas in 2008 had multiple jobs that were over $5 billion per job. The rental revenue was epic. Unfortunately, I was a victim of the big collapse and crash in 2008. And I came back to Colorado, and I spent 15 years in the rental industry, in both as a sales rep as well as an executive with Ahern Equipment. And I did all their sales training coast to coast, which was a ton of fun. And I learned as I walked into and I learned from our own mistakes a lot of valuable lessons in the rental industry.
Awesome. So you've seen a lot. So I want to jump into one of our first topics here, which is scaling up 1 to 5 locations. There's a wide variety of people on the call. We have some people just getting started, getting into their first location, some people with 5+ locations. But no matter who we bring on, growth and sales comes up very often. And by the way, I just want to plug for the audience, feel free to chat in questions at any point. This should be interactive, and I'll make sure to ask those questions to Elliott as we go through. One of the questions we get asked a lot about is, how do I grow? How do I go to the next level? How do I go from 1 location to 2 locations, and then 2 to 3, and all the way up to 5? So if I'm a rental owner, I've got my 1 location, I have ambitions to scale and grow my business bigger. How do I think about that?
Brilliant question. And the reason why it's a brilliant question is because I think in the next year, and we're going to kind of dabble into this, I think in the next year, obviously the past 2 years, 3 years, the amount of available fleet because of COVID, because of microchips, because of a lot of things, slowed down the production of equipment. So what we had is we had very high demand and very low supply. And I think that created an interesting element in the industry, is that everybody said that demand is astronomically high, but we also have to factor in that supply was relatively low. And we didn't get the normal influx of fleet that we normally get. Now, right now in the industry, we're seeing a lot of the manufacturers starting to catch up with production. Things that were a 2-year or 3-year lag or even a 1-year lag are now going down to a 6-month lag for production. And what I think is happening right now is that we're all seeing, well, if there's more fleet and we finally got an opportunity to buy it, we should buy it. And if you're going to buy it, I think that's brilliant. But if you're looking at expanding because the market right now is still relatively hot, I think the biggest thing you need to look at is familiarity. When I worked for Ahern went into Florida, and they went into Florida hard. And the problem is you need to have the right amount of support, and you need to have the right amount of network to support it. I think if you're going to expand, you're going to go from 1 location to 2 or 2 to 3. One of the biggest things you need to look at before all else is how easy is it to move and transfer fleet. And if your utilization is not sitting at that 60 to 70 range, and you're only at maybe 50% utilized on the majority of your fleet, you might want to take a minute and see whether or not you can share fleet with your new location before you have a lot of capital output and you're spending a lot of money only to be unsuccessful in a new market. So I think if you can find a location that is within 1 to 2 hours, something that's reasonable, and you could have a driver move fleet around towards the end of the day, or even share some of the resources, I think that's the first thing before you overexpend a lot of revenue towards something that may not pan out in a new market.
So it sounds like some of the mistakes you've seen is people, they scale themselves too far outside their comfort zone. Maybe, hey, I'm in Colorado. Let's open a store in Texas. That seems like a great idea. But what you can't do is share inventory very easily. It's not within driving distance. It sounds like you need to sort of own your local market and ideally be between 1 to 2 locations so you can move people around, move inventory around. Is that right?
Absolutely perfect. Well done on the kind of recap there. I agree with you 100%. I watched, and we have to understand is obviously, and everybody knows that Ahern owned the manufacturing for Snorkel and Extreme. And because of that, they had easy access to a lot of fleet, which was a wonderful lesson, because if you don't have a problem to get fleet, you should buy as much as you can and grow your footprint. But what we found is it became a lot of very expensive paperweights sitting out in the yard if the market didn't get properly advertised, properly sold to, and if the market wasn't ready to receive it. You shouldn't move in unless you've got an opportunity to really penetrate that market and let people know that you're there. I think that if you're going to start buying fleet, you should take a big evaluation of where you can find your niche. And I think niche is critical. You should look at your utilization. I was recently in a branch, and obviously forklifts right now are a hot commodity. Everybody wants forklifts. And it was funny because it's the same with a lot of other equipment, but they had a lot of 19-foot scissors that were just sitting. They were just collecting dust. And I think if you're going to look to go into markets, make sure that you're buying fleet that's going to be highly utilized, that people either walking through the door or your salesmen are willing to push. And I think that if you're willing to grow and move fleet, do it smart. I think if we learn from our mistakes that we've made in my over 25 years in the industry, is that when we start throwing money at problems, if and when the economy slows down, you don't want to be stuck with a lot of fleet and a lot of fleet payments on units that are underutilized if and when the economy might change.
So I want to go back to what you were saying around, we've done our analysis, we picked a location, hour away, we feel like we have our niche. How do I go to market? How do I get my brand out there? How do I get their sales team energized, start pushing this equipment? Now that we've done our research, we found a location, got our niche. How do we get our name out there?
Really, I think the biggest thing is a lot of the smaller rental houses that don't have sales forces, and that's fine. I don't know if every rental company needs to have a big sales force. I think one of the key things you can do is there's a lot of ways to network that are very simple ways to network. And to send you as an owner, or to send a shop supervisor or even one of your counter people and let them get off the counter for a little while and drive to job sites or locations that are easily serviced. Now, if you sit and you think about your branch right now, whoever's watching this, there is a location, there is a job site, anything from a home builder doing a backyard project to a hotel or an apartment complex. There's something within 3 to 5 miles of your branch. Now, the great thing is if anyone that's on this call is going to complain about anything, they're probably going to complain that there's not enough great people right now. Great people are hard to find. And it's kind of fun to do some cross training, is let one of your counter people go out and go to a job site. And if they just knock on the general contractor's trailer and say, hey, if you need a mini excavator for a day, if you need a demo saw, if you need some small tools, we're just down the street and you drive by and pick it up, a great deal, and we'd love to help your job site. Everybody's looking for convenience. Look at Amazon. Amazon is absolutely dominating for one reason: convenience. What you can do is you don't have to send your salesman to hell and gone looking for job sites and opportunities. They can literally find something within 3 to 5 miles. that you can easily service with a limited number of service techs and a limited number of drivers and a limited number of resources, you can still find great opportunities.
Yeah, it's sort of hiding in plain sight, right? It's right there, like 3 to 5 miles. I think you made an interesting point. Everyone's short on talented people, it seems, maybe even more so lately than it has been. It sounds like the outbound sales motion, getting your name out, isn't limited just to the sales team. Like, if it's a slower time, it sounds like everyone should be getting out on the road, introducing themselves. Is that a fair statement? Would you say everyone in the company needs to take on that mentality?
Absolutely. And each one of us, we need to kind of talk about that. Home Depot has all their little rental yards at all their branches, and Lowe's is now getting into the game where they're going to start putting in rental yards. And as the industry grows and expands and people are realizing there's opportunities, Lowe's and Home Depot are basically capping into the foot traffic, which they realize will get them contractors and other stuff. And if people aren't coming in to buy lumber and flashlights and light bulbs, how do people find out about your rental company? How do they find out about what you're doing out there? And if you want more traffic, you can either sit back and wait, or you can go out and create. And if you're going to go out and create, you need to have a day where you're willing to step up as a branch manager or as an owner and say, look, I'm going to cover the counter for a few hours, and I'm going to let some of my employees go out and promote their passion, get out of the daily grind, and help me grow what we're trying to build here.
I like it. So that kind of ties into our second topic here, which is, crafting the sales A team. So, imagine I've got one salesperson, small operation, one location. I'm like, all right, there's something here, got some cash. I feel like we should invest in our sales team. All right, so some of the questions I have is, one, when is the right time to do that? How do I know this is the right decision? Okay, make that answer. 2, how do we actually go make it happen? How do I find A players in a world where there's not a lot of even people to find to work? So help me think through that.
Absolutely. And it's great because I knew this was coming up and I spent a lot of time thinking about it. So thanks for creating this podcast. I actually just put up a video on LinkedIn, and it was how to hire A players. And the one big one is I love the feedback that everybody gives on LinkedIn and the support that they give. I think that when you're looking for a sales team, a lot of people are looking for what I call industry experts, somebody who already has all the answers. And as you know, from what you create, what your company is, you're trying to introduce people into new ideas and new thoughts. And if I'm going to give one winner chicken dinner idea of what makes a great salesperson, first and foremost, you want somebody who has a great work ethic. And the great work ethic means that nobody's watching you. You have to get up, you have to get in that truck, and you got to go make it happen. You want somebody who has entrepreneur DNA. They want to build something. They want to make something happen. I find that traditionally, a lot of former athletes, and I don't just mean like a big giant college football player, but you and I talked about hockey, is if somebody's playing hockey, they understand that there's days you win, there's days you lose. You got to be competitive. The season is longer than one game. You got to make sure that you take the hits and the bumps and the bruises. You got to make sure that you're always willing to practice to grow. And I hate to say it, but when people hire salespeople, what they do is they say, how well do you know the equipment? And I can tell you, oh my gosh, let me tell you all about the equipment. That doesn't mean that I have a great work ethic. There's people who can tell you all about hockey, but there's no way they know how to skate. And that's a different set of skills. I say, if you're going to build a sales team, look for someone who is a self-starter. Look for someone who is very good at being persistent. And I don't just mean persistent like pushy. I mean persistent like there's days someone's going to say, I'm not interested. And you're going to say, I understand. I will go call on somebody else. Different level of persistence. And in hockey, you can shoot 100 times, and the average game, you make 1 in 30 goals. And you have to understand that you got to make a lot of those shots to get to the one that's going to go through. And that level of persistence, that level of effort, you have to have an idea of that you're always willing to learn about new products. You know, as Quipli puts out great products, people need to learn about new products, and it's part of growing as people. And I think if you're going to hire someone onto your sales team, you asked a great question, which is when to do it. I think that if you have a stagnant level, or if you realize you have missed opportunities, and here's a big one for missed opportunities. If somebody comes into your yard and he's the worker, he pulls up in a company truck, and I'll just, XYZ plumbing, and he pulls up and the guy fills the propane tank and he buys a blade and he leaves. You got to ask yourself, what's he buying a blade for? And if you say, well, here's the thing. What's he got the propane tank for? He may be getting equipment from somebody else, but you're convenient. Now, the only reason why he's not looking at all of that other equipment in your yard is because you either haven't gone and sold to them, or you don't have a salesperson that's going to their office that says, let me be a bigger part of your company and let me be a more valued asset. If you're already coming to my yard, let me deliver equipment to your job sites. And I think those are huge opportunities that a lot of people are missing, is that if they're already coming to your yard, why aren't you going to their office and selling the next level?
I like that. I mean, there's a few great points you made. I like the work ethic piece, former athletes. I think of Enterprise Rental Car. They really focus on former athletes. Talked to Damon Haber yesterday, who's founder for Core 360, worked at Enterprise for 18 years, immediately starts a company, which has been very successful. It's sort of in that DNA that's all related to the self-starter, persistence, work ethic. I do have a question from the audience related to this. Someone says, totally agree. What's the best place to find your first sales rep? Where would you look? Okay, totally makes sense. I'm going to go for, high work ethic people. Where do I find them? That first person.
I'm going to bounce right back to you. I remember hiring a couple of great people from Enterprise. I remember hiring, I can tell you right now, if you find, I'll tell you what the trifecta is. If you go into a restaurant, if you go into a hotel and you see somebody who hustles, I mean, they just hustle, and you talk to them and you find out that they love what they do and they have that work ethic. The hotel industry, the restaurant industry is absolutely brutal. It is morning, noon, and night. And just about the time it's 9 o'clock and you're like, ooh, I get to go home. Somebody walks in and sits down at your table and you're there till 11. And you have to have that mentality when you're in the rental world of, we're kind of reactionary, and we got to be willing to step up to the plate when the call demands it. Now, if you're somebody who says, hey, I work at Home Depot and I know all the equipment, guess what? When Home Depot locks the doors, they're locking the doors. Where restaurants will be like, sure, come on in and sit down and we'll stay for another 2 hours. And that level of work ethic and that level of commitment, I think, is beautiful. I think you can find wonderful, wonderful athletes. Like if you go in every neighborhood, everything has a coach. And I would say, hey, do you know a kid that's a baseball player, that's a hockey player, that's a football player? Do you know a young lady that's a softball player, somebody that's a golfer, that is a collegiate athlete or a high school athlete that's looking for a job? And then I would check their work ethic. I would put them on the counter, teach them the industry and teach them the equipment, and then slowly work them into an outside sales position while you build their confidence.
Interesting. That's an interesting take. I mean, I think I wouldn't say so much as controversial, because I actually agree with you, but there's probably some people who would say, yeah, okay, great. Nicest person ever, stay until midnight cleaning tables. What do they know about construction equipment? How would you answer that? Like, how important is industry experience, right? And I know you can learn anything. We all have learned all of this our whole lives, but you have this A player who's incredibly hardworking, kind, does the right thing, know nothing about equipment. What's that transition going to be like? Is that actually going to work out for my business?
I love you. Absolutely. So here's the thing is, watch this. Customer service is customer service. And you can sit there, and if I could tell you, if you said, Elliott, and I've watched it, I've gone into companies where they said, we're doing product training, and they bring in a service tech and they bring in an engineer and they bring in people, and they can talk about their product for days. And what they don't realize is nobody's paying attention, because they're not telling people what they want to know. They're not teaching them, why is this feature or benefit good for me? Now, you can know everything there is to know about equipment, and you don't have the work ethic to help. Our industry, the construction equipment industry, the rental industry, is an industry of service. 90% of the people that come and get equipment, guess what? They know what the hell they want. Some guy's not going to just come walking into your yard and he says, hey, I'm digging a swimming pool. Do you guys have an automatic shovel? And they're going to mean, you mean an excavator? Well, something that like a big, they know what the heck they want. They've done a little bit of research. Now, what you can't teach is customer service, where someone says, yes, sir, we have an excavator, a mini excavator that would fit in your backyard. Let us walk you out. I'll have one of my service techs show you how to use it. Now, that level of customer service, that is irreplaceable. And those soft skills, I think, are way more valuable than somebody who says, I know everything about equipment and I don't care.
I mean, at the end of the day, we're all in the people business. You know, we do software, you know, you do equipment rental. It's all about service and people. And I think that's the theme you're hitting on. Another comment from Colin, who chatted in around, sounds like they've seen success from customers and employee referral, especially people who have recent college grads that work their way through college. Have you found that as a good predictor of someone with work ethic, someone who has, you know, from 16 years old, essentially worked their way through college? Is that another predictor of success here?
Absolutely. And everybody already knows that if you worked your way through college, you know how to put in that, what I call the second gear. You know, everybody, when you've got everything handed to you, that hunger makes for great salespeople. Holy crud. And if you can't get up every morning and kick your own butt, you might have problems going into sales.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you could be the best salesperson in the world. You're going to lose more than you win very often. And you got to be able to pull yourself up. I want to talk about a less popular topic, but important topic, which is firing. So we've made great hires, done our homework. Sometimes it doesn't work out. It's not going to be 100% hit rate, unfortunately. How do you know when it's not working out and when is the right time to pull the trigger and let someone go?
That's a tough question. You know, right now we have a lot of technology and we have a lot of stuff where you can tell trends. I find that when salespeople come on board, there is a vamping up period and there's a learning period. There's a period where I have to learn what the day-to-day grind is. And then I have to learn who the customers are and I have to build a rapport. So for me, I think that there is a vamp up period, but if you put out the right amount of activity and you put out the right amount of skill and the right amount of will, you're going to produce something right off the get-go. And I think that if 3 months goes by and you have sales reps that are not producing, it may not be the right sales rep. And they may be a great sales rep. It may not be the right industry. Getting out of your truck and walking up to a big giant construction site with a bunch of ugly guys that look like me that are wearing hard hats and bright vests and throwing around shovels and dirt, it can be intimidating. And that's not for everybody. I find that the great sales reps, the really great ones, if they plateau, you also need to look at whether or not it's time for them to move on, or sometimes they need retooling. And retooling meaning send them to training. Retooling meaning helping them find their passion. Retooling meaning you kind of need to sit down, and a lot of people, they just say, well, he's in a slump. If a baseball player or a hockey player is in a slump, guess what they go get? Coaching. And people just let them go. And the problem is pretty soon you get into such a big slump, you can't get out of it. So when do you fire? I think you fire when you realize that your return on investment is no longer there. The average sales rep, and it doesn't apply to every company, so I'm giving you a broad spectrum, needs to be producing between $100,000 and $200,000 a month with an average return on the asset and average depreciation and all that other stuff to, quote, cover their nut. And that's, you know, like a squirrel covering it, means you got enough to cover what you've got. And they need to produce enough revenue that they pay for a truck, they pay for a phone, they pay for insurance, they pay for a base salary, and they get paid some commission. You really need to have your sales reps doing about $100,000 to $200,000 a month. Now, that may take 6 to 10 months before they get at that revenue, but that's really where you need to be at. Great sales reps are easily doing $1, $2, or even $3 million a month in revenue.
But it sounds like if you're seeing the work ethic, it takes around 6 to 10 months to fully ramp. Is that a reasonable ballpark for in terms of the ramp period for equipment rental sales rep?
Absolutely. And you can do things to accelerate it. I mean, if somebody's truly committed, the companies need to do things to help. You know, you can do days. I always say in all my trainings, I tell everyone, spend a day or two with a driver so that you learn how long it takes for the equipment to get there and who the end user is. Spend a day or two on the inside counter so you see what orders and call-offs, the flow of the business, how the software works. You need to spend a day or two out with a mechanic, not because I need you to be a mechanic, but that you understand that 50% of all service calls are operator error. Now, once that 1 week, that's 6 days, that 6 days will accelerate your sales reps to be much more successful. If you just give them a phone and you give them a piece of software and say, go to it, they're not necessarily going to produce. You got to make sure you train them on them and give them the right support.
So I want to ask another question around the sales A team. And I got this question from your website. It's on your homepage. So you didn't answer it. It was a rhetorical question, but the question was, what would happen if you invested in all of your sales reps producing 5 to 15% more revenue every month?
That absolutely. And I love that, because the problem is that too many companies let their salesmen dictate the results. And it's funny because I teach mindset and I teach other parts that make for great sales reps, is that if I told everybody on the call right now, as I said, you know what, close your mind and imagine more. And it's simple, but I do this training, and the crazy thing is everybody produces more. And I say, listen, your sales reps will produce as much as they are comfortable with. So how do you encourage? There's only 2 reasons why people change. The number 1 reason why people change is because of discomfort. They look out and all of a sudden their doctor says you're going to die if you don't lose weight. Then you go on a diet. And the other reason why is inspiration. So inspiration and desperation. So if you're only going to change for inspiration or desperation, too many of your sales reps, your goal is just to make them comfortable. They're never going to produce more because they're not encouraged or discouraged. And so we have a lot of salesmen out there that they could produce more if you encouraged them. And bringing somebody in where you say, what would 5 to 15% more look like? And the average sales rep, in case you're wondering, that equates to 1 to 2 more calls per day. And the average sales rep in America is doing less than 8 calls a day. And if they're putting down that they're doing more, you got to watch it on whether or not they're pencil whipping it. But the reps that actually go out there and do it, like there's sales reps that it actually helps. It's kind of funny if they have a little bit of ADD and that attention deficit disorder. Guess what? They want to do 30 calls a day because they're just go, 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 go. They drink their Red Bulls and they go make sales calls. And those people produce because they're energetic, and energy is a transfer of enthusiasm.
So I'm curious, when you're providing coaching to people, do you focus more on the inspiration aspect or the desperation? What's the more powerful driver for results?
I love inspiration. Yeah. I really do. And I love
versus stick.
Yeah. I love the carrot. And the thing is and it's fun because like, I understand the challenges that come about, but the stick, I watch terrible managers that use the stick and you get resistance from the stick. Where if you tell somebody, you know what, let me inspire you. But I always say, close your eyes and think about what would happen if you quit making sales calls for 6 months. What would happen to your numbers? And then all of a sudden people are like, I hadn't thought about that. Okay, so tell me the last time you made a cold call. Ugh. And you're like, you're doing that right now. You're just doing it subconsciously. You're spending your time on TikTok. You're not spending your time out on the clock.
I like that. It's a good line. You couldn't say that 5 years ago. I don't think TikTok really existed. That's a new one. I read a lot about these. I'm not very athletic, but I read these sports psychology books, and they talk about 6 inches between your ears and how important mindset is. It sounds like that's been an important part of the coaching services you provide, is getting people in the right headspace.
Absolutely. You know, and just bouncing it back, is that every one of us gets tools, and it blows my mind how many companies spend a lot of money on tools and they don't spend money on training them how to utilize the tools. Is you can come up with a lot of things that are going to drive revenue, but how do you drive the character that's going to use it? And it's funny because people just don't do it. You know, they go out and they get a brand new tool. You sit with Quipli and you say, hey, I'm going to give you a brand new tool. If they utilize it to its fullest, they're going to gain 2, 3, 4, 5% more revenue by better managing their assets. And the crazy thing is, and higher utilizations, where sales reps go out and you do the exact same thing. You get them the training, they will produce 5, 10, 15% more revenue. And your top rep produces more revenue than your bottom 3 reps combined. But yet people aren't tapping into, how do you bring the bottom 3 up and best support the top one?
I like that. Elliott, we've got a few comments and questions I want to get to. Evan said 100%. This is so good. She got a positive there. Isaac made a comment, not a question, but for those kinds of sales numbers, you mentioned $100,000 to $200,000 a month. One would need access to enough equipment to fulfill that demand. That probably goes to your first topic, though, around like, you got to make sure you're in the right locations, have the access to equipment, right? If you don't have any availability, there's no point of hiring but salespeople, right? So I think
who made that comment? Did you say Luke?
That was Isaac. He's in
Isaac.
Missouri. Yeah.
Perfect. So Isaac, here's the biggest thing: is you're 100% correct. The biggest thing is, though, is if, you know, I realize those are big numbers, but if you walk out, Isaac, and you look around your yard, there are opportunities for rentals. And I don't know you, Isaac, but I can guarantee that if your utilization is not sitting between 70 and 80%, there is definitely potential and there's definitely opportunities to encourage some growth. Even if it's not to that $100,000 range, there's always margins there to be capped into if people are willing to take a minute and look for new markets and new fleet.
Isaac's awesome. I know Isaac. So if maybe I'll connect you guys afterwards.
Perfect.
I've got 2 questions. They're related. So I'm gonna ask you both of them at the same time. One is from Mina. How do you teach focus? Calls are one thing, but focus is another. My issue is not the volume they're doing, but quality. That's one question. Question 2, related. Any specific tactics to help inspire sales reps that might be in the slump or stuck in the same old milk run? How can you provide a change of scenario without sacrificing some of that production?
Perfect. So those are 2. Wow, that's you just opened a
80
can.
questions. Yeah, like
Let me just take this can up and open it.
Yeah, they're not. We've moved past the softball. Like, tell me about yourself. This is the meat.
That's it. So for quality and focus, great question. The biggest thing to keep sales reps focused is, I am a huge proponent of coming up with a piece of software, coming up with things that assist. A day timer, if you're old school, a piece of paper. I'm a big one of time management. And the biggest one is too many managers out there, branch managers, company owners, they don't inspect what they expect. They tell the sales reps, go out and make a lot of sales calls. And then they don't say, hey, how many calls did you make today? And the rep says 10. All right, well, let's go follow up with those next week and I'll jump in the truck with you and let's go visit a few of them. And because you don't inspect it, the thing is people kind of slip to that bottom line. And I think that if you go out and there's great pieces of equipment or software that's out there that'll help sales reps manage their fleet. You know, no matter what you use, I recommend Rep Move, which is nothing more than a way of GPS and kind of how people are going through it. I think if you sit there and you look at Quipli on how you better manage the fleet, all of those are great, amazing tools to organize. I think if you're going to sit there and you're going to look at what makes the sales reps focus, I think you have to have goals. Goals direct our attention. If you're going to sit there and you're going to say, hey, I need to know what your goal is for the month. If the company doesn't set a goal, can you be disappointed about the results? So if you're going to say, hey, how do I get my reps focused? What goals are in front of them? And I don't mean put more on rent or do a good job. right now, what is the goal for October? What is the goal for November? What are the goal for some of our people up in the, for October for blowout season with compressors? What market are you going after right now for snow removal? And are you looking at tapping into some of that potential market? And the problem is if you don't set goals for your reps, don't be surprised if they don't set goals either. And pretty soon we lack our focus, which you're worried about. And you have sales reps that go out, and without focus, you can't be unhappy if there's no results. Okay.
I think in many ways it's almost easier to onboard new employees because you're setting expectations for the first time. But what about the people you've been there 5 years, comfortable doing the same old runs? How do you reinvigorate them? And I've been particularly focused on the inspiration side. You know, we don't want to use the stick unless we don't have to. But how do you reawaken people who have been comfortable and do it in a way that they're excited about it?
Yeah. You can take people to a training seminar. You can take people and do podcasts like this. You can take a lot of things that are good inspiration and kind of scrambles people's eggs. You can also change their comp plan. And it's not a stick. What you do is you say, for every new account, meaning they filled out a credit app, they came in, they were a new customer that puts a piece of equipment on rent, I will give you a $25, $50, or $100 spiff that we will do it. So then you've got that carrot. And then what you have is you have sales reps that haven't been opening up many new accounts. They haven't been driving revenue. And all of a sudden they're inspired because the comp plan rewards that extra effort even more so. And if you have people that are really competitive, it doesn't hurt when you say, hey, my top 2 sales reps, you get an owner's lunch if you led the company in new accounts and you led the company in revenue. You have no idea how much your employees want to be with you as their leader, as their commander, as their wonderful director. They want to spend time with you and they look up to you. And if you literally incentivize them, we're going to go have a steak lunch with the top person, people will literally, that's a great carrot to encourage them to do better. And I'll tell you, your veteran, when they see a rookie got the lunch and they didn't, they're going to wipe the sweat off and they're going to get to it. And it encourages them because we all want more.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think about the Charlie Munger quote, you know, show me the incentives and I'll tell you the outcome type of thing. So it's sort of really around aligning the incentives for the outcome you want to see.
I love that. Who's that?
Charlie Munger is Warren Buffett's partner.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they got a lot of one-liners. All right, got a few questions lining up. You're a popular guy, Elliott. One of them is a specific question for Jordan. If my branch is an hour and 15 minutes south of my territory in a limited yard, how do I separate myself from convenience to quality and relationships with new prospects? We're currently around 65% utilization. Now it's hired to get new accounts expanding north.
Wow. Relationships. I have mad respect for you because that is difficult. And probably if they've got you being an hour and a half away from your branch, they're looking back to our original topic. They're looking to probably look to go into new markets, and they're looking for penetration, and they're looking to, quote, have a foothold in that market before they look at expanding. So I don't know for sure, but the best thing you can do, and you've got an uphill battle, I'm not going to lie to you. You need to go in and build relationships. The quality comes from you. And you can sit there and I'm going to tell you, it's long hours. It's a ton of effort. But just like we said, and you heard the prior question was how do I get my sales reps focused and motivated and fired up? Some people, guess what? There's the famous book, Who Moved My Cheese? If you know that the cheese is always down the street, you have a tendency to not get up and go run around looking for new cheese. And some of those sales reps may become complacent or even lack the energy because they're just used to it's always been there. And if you give more effort, more attention, and better relationships, I will 100% guarantee you your customers will see the value in your genuine care. Too many people take things for granted. When you take it for granted, it will disappear. And if some new young blood comes in there, and I don't mean young, just young in age, but young in effort, and comes into that market and genuinely puts in the I care and I want to help you, people will sniff that out in a heartbeat compared to their old sales rep who just doesn't care as much.
no shortcuts, really. It's relationships, right? We go back to what we said: it's people, business, service, and you got to build the relationships. And that's, I mean, the truth is, sounds like it's long hours, and you got to just get out there. I want a couple comments here. Heath made the point, going back to aligning incentives and reinvigorating the sales team. Most importantly, she said they want to win and be recognized for winning. And I think there's like a celebration part of this. We're all, coin operated in some extent, but, just being recognized in front of your peers, you can't put a price on that.
You can't. I think that is absolutely beautiful said. My biggest thing is an attitude of gratitude. If you recognize people and you appreciate their daily efforts and their daily grinds, right now people are realizing that there has to be a quality of life, not just a quality of work. And the way you create that is you got to be kind. We got to respect each other, and you got to be grateful. If you just tell somebody, man, you have no idea how grateful I am that you put in that extra hour, and I know you're making sacrifices, and I appreciate you. Boy, you've nailed it. People will go the extra mile with a little bit of attitude of gratitude.
Yeah, I like it. And one of our core top 5 company values is we celebrate the small wins. Because I remember what it was like to get the first customer, and now it becomes more routine, but can't lose sight of that. I think celebrating wins, celebrating the team is a super important thing as you sort of build positive momentum in an organization.
Absolutely, well put.
A couple other questions. One from Sean. Starting the crane service and rental business, what is the best course to take? Renting, lease, purchase, or purchase? And should I focus on new or used cranes first? So I guess first question is getting into the crane rental business. How do I learn about that business? How do I learn about sales probably in the business? And then thinking about, should I focus on new or used cranes? A little bit more tactical around equipment.
Absolutely. The crane industry is a very, very niche industry. And Sean, I guarantee you're seeing that and you're feeling that. Cranes are probably more technical than a lot of people realize. And because cranes get into different loads, different capacities, different reaches, different setups, and nobody quotes run down and grab a crane and just says, I'm going to use it like Bobby getting a mini excavator to dig a swimming pool in his backyard. So the cranes, you need to be a certified crane operator. It is a more niche market. So if I'm going to give you 2 recommendations, number 1, I would reach out to a lot of your rental houses, and I would ask the rental houses, some of the bigger ones that may not carry cranes, if they ever get somebody that comes in and looks for a crane, would they send those leads your way? That's a great way to penetrate it. Number 2, I would go out and I would go for key industries that are high in crane rentals. Those key industries, meaning I would first go after air handling units. Right now I'm down in Texas and it's 105 degrees and air handlers are cooking and burning out. And to put a new air handler on the roof, you're not doing that with anything but a crane. So going out to every mechanical contractor and HVAC company is critical. Last but not least, I would definitely tap into big steel erection companies. Every one of those are great companies to tap into when it comes to crane rentals. Last but not least, I would go out and I would make sure that I get to know general contractors so that they can tell you about projects prior to the project even starting. So that when the steel erectors, they've already got a plan on how they're putting it up. But the thing is you got to make sure that you become the quintessential expert in the market. And that takes a ton of work.
I like it. We have a couple of questions we may have to pause on because I do want to get in that last 10 minutes here, the third topic, which I'm personally interested in, which is we talked about the decade in a flash, a decade in 10 minutes, maybe thinking about sales trends in the equipment rental space over the last decade. You've been here for 20, 25 years. You've seen a lot of changes. Take me back 10 years ago and how equipment rental sales were happening, and then take me to where we are now and maybe even where we're going next.
Absolutely. The biggest thing for me in the industry is, I had a multi-billionaire executive, and I sat down with him and I said, as I talk to people in the construction industry, they say that the jobs are often misbid. And he said, that's a lie. And I said, why do you say that? And he said, well, because we have 20 years worth of data on how construction projects are built. We didn't misbid anything. They're mismanaged. And I said, okay. Then I sat and I looked at myself and I looked at the rental world and I looked at the construction equipment world. And the crazy thing is you look at Quipli, you look at any type of equipment out there, and the tools you have, the problem that people have is we have amazing tools to make us run faster, safer, and more efficient. And now that we're running faster, safer, and more efficient, we should be producing better margins and having higher output. The problem is that that's not happening. What we're doing is we're using the tools to create slack. We're using the tools to create relaxation. We're using the tools to create free time. So where everybody went out and they said, man, I need to put in a good 8 to 10 to 12 hour day and I really need to kick butt. It's basically our TikToks, our Facebooks, our whatever are now gobbling up 1 to 2 hours, and we're doing the same amount of work, but we're working less. I think the smart people that are really going to change the industry, that are really going to rock sales and rock business going forward, are the companies that are smart enough to use all the new tools. GPS, amazing tool. And we all take it for granted. You're like, GPS, but you got to realize every vehicle you jump into now will basically show you the fastest route. Your phone will show you the fastest route to every customer, saving you time, saving you money, and making you be more efficient. Now, if we don't use all of those tools, we're fools. So right now, the smart companies are saying, hey, if I reach out Quipli, if I use GPS, if I use all these, and I still put in the same amount of effort, you will absolutely dominate the market. The problem is the human condition. We are putting in a minimum amount of effort and expecting maximum results. We're all looking for the magic pill. We're all looking for the app that will solve all of our fitness problems. What we really need is we need to get up and go out and still make it happen and have the same work ethic and mentality that they had 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago. Some people still have it. And those people like you, like me, like other people on this call are the people that go out and make a difference. If you use the tools properly and you have the element of work ethic, the industry is changing so fast right now, you will literally leave the world behind. Because there's too many sales reps out there that sit under their truck with their good air conditioning. 30 years ago, they didn't have it. 40 years ago, they didn't have it. They had to get out and they had to go hustle. They had to go find a cell phone. They had to go do all kinds of stuff. They had to go find a payphone, even worse. With all the tools we have, all the text messages, all the software, all the management tools, there is zero reason why you shouldn't produce 10 to 20% more if you utilize all the resources at your fingertips.
I like that. I mean, sounds like we've gotten more and more efficient, and what we've done is work less with the same results. Human condition. I'm just a personal question for you. What, and we'll wrap up here in a second, but what drives you? Like, why do you keep getting up at, 105-degree temperatures in Texas and doing calls like this and going around the country? What personally drives you?
Thank you. Because somebody says, that's my why. And my why is that when I started in this industry, my first week was absolute hell. I had a manager who said, I don't want you working here. I slipped on a scissor lift and slipped a disc in my back. I had people yelling at me, and people were like, look, it's trial by fire. And I said, that's terrible. That is absolutely terrible. And I realized that sales reps, inside sales, company owners, every one of us in this industry, we are desperate for someone to help. That's what you do. You desperately want to help. You find a need and you meet that need. I am on the road every single week, and I've got a beautiful little girl who lives without a dad. And I'll tell you right now, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And I care. I care enough that I leave my wife. I'm sitting in an office of one of my customers, and they care for me because I care for them. And I'm sitting down here in Texas because I genuinely care about sales rep success, rental industry as a whole. And I realize that there's a lot of resources that you can bring to bear to make the world a better place. People don't have to go through the hell that I went through. That was my first year in the rental business if they don't have to. And I think we have an obligation as people to help in any way we can to make the world a better place. There's plenty of people out there that complain. We need more people that are willing to try.
Elliott, we need more people like you in the rental industry. We got a lot of chats here. This has been incredible, amazing. I agree with that.
Let's do this again.
What's that?
Let's do this again.
Let's do it again. For me, when we get people, people tell us, hey, thank you for starting Quipli. You've made my life XYZ easier. Like, it's hard.
I heard that too last week.
Well, nice to hear that. We should definitely do this again. My last question I'd like to end with is, you've gotten a lot of advice in your life. You've been successful, but think about one piece of advice that has personally stood out to you. Some of the best advice you've really ever gotten.
Wow, that's a doozy. The best piece of advice I think I've ever got, which is the one I just said, which is nobody cares how much you know until you know how much you care. And in the rental industry, people go in and they try and be flashy with tons and tons of knowledge. That guy on that construction site, he does not care how much you know until he knows how much you care. Do you care about his safety? Do you care about his business? Do you care about his profitability? You're putting these podcasts out for free. You're spending your time. You're stressing out over that the call didn't start the way we wanted it to. The reason why is you genuinely care. And guess what? Everybody on this call picks up that you're willing to do everything in your power to show how much you care. And right now, there needs to be more of that in the world. Too many people just don't give a damn. And I will stick with, nobody cares how much I know or you know until they know how much each one of us cares.
I love it. It's a great way to close this out. This has been awesome. We're still getting chats about how awesome this is. Maybe we do need to do this more often. Elliott, we left your LinkedIn and email in the chat for people to reach out to you. For people listening on Spotify or somewhere else, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Elliott Vigil, ELLIOTT, Vigil, which is VIGIL.com. If you look up Elliott Vigil or find me on LinkedIn, I am the bearded sales coach, and I got this big fluffy beard. And it makes me look good when I'm on a construction site.
Yeah, I'm catching up. I've been growing this for about 9 months. I'm just kidding. I don't know if I can.
Dude, you're there.
We'll be there soon. All right, Elliott, thanks for the time today. Thanks everyone for joining.
Hey, do me one favor. Please schedule. Let's make sure that if anybody has questions and they reach out to you, let's do this again in a few months, and let's sit down and let's build some other great questions, and let's do our best to add value to the market, help you, and genuinely let's help the market as a team.
Let's do it. Let's plan to do another one before the end of the year. Maybe we start doing this every 3 months.
Outstanding, brother. I appreciate you all. Thank you for everyone on the call. Please reach out to us and let us know how we can better serve the industry.
All righty. Thanks, Elliott. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a great day.